we welcome right now the co-host of Real Politics US, excellent podcast, and friend of Hot Mics with Billy Bush, the great Anthony Scaramucci. Mooch, this is the text that I sent you this morning.
Quite an introduction.
You are a great man. You are a great man. You're so eloquent. I just love listening to your takes. I texted you this morning. I said, big guy, couple thoughts on my mind. What's happening in London is unbelievable. Unite the Kingdom rally. If any part of this is racist, is this somehow, can this be okay? Because it is existential, and there is evidence of it being a real threat. Any chance you are available? And you said, I'll pop in for as long as I can. What do you see when you look at this?
I spent a lot of time in the UK. Obviously, our podcast, The Rest is Politics US, is a derivation of a UK podcast, and the company that does it is from London. It's a company called Goalhanger. The legendary Gary Lineker is the founder of it, alongside of Tony Pastor, et cetera. But I would just say to you that there is palpable tribalism going on in the country. And I would say the old UK, which is represented by this Unite movement, is suggesting all that. If you look at the statistics, they're just not there. Crime has been on a consistently downward trend over the last 5 or 6 years. But you know this, and I know this, it's about the money, Bill. And what's going on right now is that white middle-class jobs in the UK, also here in the United States, are going down. And in my friend and your friend Scott Galloway would say to you, it's not an unemployment crisis. The unemployment numbers are pretty good in the UK, but it's people that have jobs, Billy, that can't afford their life. So they're literally like working poor. That's the greatest anxiety you can have. I've got a full-time job. I'm working earnestly, but I can't afford to eat. And so they're marching. Okay, you put 60,000 protesters in place. And then if, Keir Starmer, who I like, I don't have anything negative to say about the prime minister, but I would tell you he made a Hillary Clinton deplorables mistake over the weekend. He called the marchers convicted thugs and racists, and he blocked some of the foreign speakers from entering the UK to speak at the event. And I'm going to tell you this, Billy, when you moralize at working class voters, instead of answering to them related to their affordability questions and others, you don't shrink the movement. You actually grow the movement and you expand the movement. And so Hillary Clinton learned that in 2016. And I think Prime Minister Starmer is going to feel the heat of that. And, listen, he had some really bad elections 10 days ago. The local elections went against him. And so Robinson is the rally, Nigel Farage is the vote, and reform is beating labor in the polls. So, Billy, you got to be worried about this. If you're a conventionalist like I am, and I can't say that you are, but if you are a conventionalist.
I'm a radical centrist.
Yeah, well, me too. I'm a radical centrist. I'm just saying I want conventional government. I would just say to people that are in that middle, you got to make the thing work for these people. If you don't make it work for these people, they're going to rebel and they're going to pick populist leaders. They'll pick them on the left.
You talked about the crime numbers, Anthony. You talk about the crime numbers. You say they're down.
They're down. So I have the numbers here. I mean, I can cite them for you.
But what about what these guys say? What Tommy Robinson says? They constantly go to. And remember, when you're trying to make a point and you've got sort of extreme people leading the way, they always cite things like over here, super right-wing conservatives are going to talk about, men playing on women's teams. This affects 0.1% of the population, but it's just a red meat issue. In this one, they're talking about, young British girls being raped by Pakistani or Islamic migrants. And is that a non-issue? Is it a negligible thing, or red meat, or is it not negligible? It couldn't be negligible if it's one, but is it something that they're using to propel, or is this like an epidemic? Because if it is,
well, let me tell you what goes on, because we have a lot of different things in this primordial thing that we call our brain, right? So the neocortex is the newer part of our brain. That's where we get our consciousness from. But in the back here, you have all this atavism, which is related to tribalism. And if you don't look like me and you don't act like me, I have developed a natural hatred towards you because it has to do with me making my genes go forward and not yours. And so we hit each other in the head with rocks in the caves. And now we're doing this in the form of tribalism and racism to each other rather than transcending that and recognizing that we're all human beings. But the migration, if you look at the numbers, Billy, and I'm going to give you the exact numbers. I did some homework before I came on. 9.6 million incidents of crime in England and Wales in calendar year 2024, down to 6.7 million in calendar year 2025. And that trend for 26 is already down in the first 4.5, 5 months of the year. So when you look at these numbers, okay, the points about rape and things like that, they are overrepresented. Non-citizens are overrepresented on drug offenses, but they're actually underrepresented on things like rape and robbery.
So they're hanging in the streets doing drugs and hanging, But are they taking the jobs? But taking jobs because there's lots and lots of migrants, right? There's
that's what it is. The jobs, and remember, they voted to exit. They Brexited from Europe because the migration coming in from places like Poland were soaking up a lot of jobs. And of course, the people, because they were members of the EU, had the right to do that migration. So this is a populist movement. They want to wall off the country. They're also telling people, hey, this is going to become a Muslim country. It was a Christian country. That's a fear-based thing for people that have been there. Listen, people respond to that. And this,
but is it entirely wrong? They are having kids, but they're having kids way more than regular Brits. The old school Brits are.
That's statistically true. And so people are saying that you're going to see Sharia law and all this different types of things, and that's creating some fear basis. But again, the way Starmer is handling it, and I shouldn't give the sermons because I'm a failed political guy, right? I got bounced after 11 days, but I would just say that the way Starmer is handling it, I would say take a breath and try to focus on what's ailing these people more than moralizing towards them.
Oh, God, that's a huge mistake, right? I mean, look, they probably made so many, I guess, left-leaning leaders have really screwed up when it comes to immigration. I mean, Trump, I wonder if amongst these people, I bet Trump is, surging in popularity.
No question.
Which, by the way, he was incredibly unpopular seconds ago. And then it just, probably swinging back the other way because he, very powerfully shut down the border entirely. And in the UK, do they have the same problem that we have here where Democrats and left-leaning progressive liberal people are trying to welcome in voters in some way? Would all these migrants tend to vote, that way as well as they do here? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes, but I think the longer answer is the country over the last decade has gotten poorer. The Brexit has not worked. The disposable income in the country has gone down more than other European countries and certainly more than the United States. And so they made a mistake by Brexiting. It was a populist, nationalist, emotional sentiment. They cut their noses off despite their economic face. And so they're stuck now because it's very hard to go back. They can't get the same deal with the EU that they once had. So there's a combination of things here that are not working well. And you have leadership that's unmoored. And by the way, I spent a lot of time in London. And so it's an anti-incumbent movement, 14 years of conservatism, 2 years now of liberalism. And people are like, throw the bums out.
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, you had 14 years to figure out how you were going to govern. And when you got the job, you're making things potentially worse, certainly not better. And so now, Nigel Farage is rising. And Billy, Nigel Farage, you met him? You know him? You've had him on your show?
No.
I mean, I think he's a con. I've met him. He's not coming with a solution. Go read through his economic proposals. Yes, some of them are hate-based. Some of them are tribally based. Yes, I get the whole border shutting down, and I understand that. You can't have an open border, Billy, if you have a welfare state. Even Milton Friedman would have told you that 40 years ago, because if you open the border, free market forces dictate that people will flood across the border to participate in your
Sure.
welfare state. So I
Yeah. I
completely
want healthcare
understand that.
for nothing. Yeah.
But exactly, healthcare, et cetera. So Nigel Farage, though, when you look at his economic proposals, they are populist proposals that will make the country weaker, and they actually hurt the people that are in support of them. But Trump said something to me. I'm going to take you back to 2016. He said to me, "Do you think the Brits are going to Brexit?" And I said, "No." And Trump said to me, "You're a dummy." And I said, "I know that I'm a dummy, but tell me why I'm a dummy." And he said, "You're a dummy because you're looking at an economic analysis of the situation. And so you think that they are not going to Brexit because of that, because it's economically harmful." I said, "Yes, that's correct." He then says to me, "It's not an economic thing, dummy. It's an emotional thing,
Yeah, he's
and
so
it's a
smart at that.
tribal thing, and they're going to Brexit."
Yeah.
And guess what? 3 weeks later, June of 2016, a decade ago, they Brexited. And by the way, if you said to me, even up, is Farage going to be their prime minister? I would say more likely than not, because the conservatives had their try, they're not liked. The liberals have now had their try, not going well. And we're in an anti-incumbency era in the West. And so reform has never held the mantle of leadership. And so people will say, hey, it can't go any worse than this. Let's experiment with reform. I hope that doesn't happen, by the way, because I think their policies. Are you allowed to say asinine on your podcast? I don't. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think their policies are asinine.
We have an a British loyal supporter here of the show. He's mad at me this morning. His name is Richard Master. We call him English Dick. English Dick. He said, "Billy just made stupid statements. Stop spouting nonsense, Billy. Billy, Billy, Billy. I don't know what you're talking about, English Dick. It's mostly been Anthony talking, but he says, I like what Anthony's saying. So you just don't like the way I'm listening? English Dick, don't make me fight with you." Anyway, who cares about that?
Well, I think first of all, I don't know him, but I love him too. But I think what he's hearing from me is that you got to get a common sense politician in there that can de-escalate the emotions. And yes, figure out what your immigration policy is going to be so that people feel secure.
Why can't we have smart immigration? I'll tell you this, but we want to let the people in who are, you don't want to just shut your borders outright. That's just not the way the country was built. I think everybody agrees. To me, it's like abortion, and I don't want to go down that road right now. But I think most people agree. We're generally common sense people who have been hijacked by the extremes in our politics. Most people agree. Yes, let's have an organized immigration policy. You come into the country in an orderly fashion, and let's prioritize those who are going to contribute, not grift. I don't think if you asked that and laid it out that way, I would guess it would be 96% favorable. Right?
Okay, but I just want to add two quick things to that. Okay, so this is about intellectual capital, and this is about being able to attract intellectual capital into your marketplace. But you have to also remember, poor people could also have intellectual capital. Sergey Brin came into the country poor. He was a refugee. He goes on and creates Google. He's worth several $100 billion. You want the poor and the rich. You're never going to be able to select them using the profiling that people use, right?
Yeah.
My family I'm from a group of peasant farmers in southern Italy. They came in dirt poor, and we've worked our whats off to get to where we are today. At some point, probably hundreds of years prior to the Scaramuccis, the Bushes arrived with the same idea. And so to me, you can't just say, okay, we're only going to take rich IQ guys that have PhDs, because you're going to miss out on a whole rainbow of activity that you're going to want in your country. And by the way, we were all talking about Graham Allison's book last week, Destined for War, where President Xi was talking about the Thucydides trap. But Graham Allison also did some great interviews with the Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of Singapore. And I'll remind people what he said. America can draw from the rest of the world if it has the right immigration strategies. The UK can draw from the rest of the world with the right immigration strategies, because these are great livable countries with great progress. And people, your UK listeners know that they have more patents and more innovation per capita in the UK than any other country in the world. And so we got to get these policies right, and we got to get the politicians off of the consultant speak. There's a rally over the weekend. What should I say? Here's what you should say, and then you go and say it. Then people get upset.
Yeah,
You got to get
no one's better
you
than
got to get to the microphone and say, "Hey, I understand why you're rallying, and here's what we're going to do to fix your economic problems. Please stay patient with me, because the reform economic policies are not going to work for this country."
Let's, what we got going on here in Los Angeles, just to shift a little bit, is we've got Spencer Pratt running for mayor.
Yes.
And it is, it's wild. He's closing in on Karen Bass. He's about latest poll I've seen, he's about 8 points behind her. Here's the Emerson poll that we're looking at. She's Karen Bass has gained a little too. She's at 30, but Spencer's at 22. And this Nithya Raman, who is a councilwoman here in the Valley, like the second district, I think it is, or third. Nithya Raman is at 19, right behind Spencer. There is overwhelming evidence that Nithya Raman, who supported Karen Bass, endorsed her. The next day, jumps into the mayor race to run against her. Who does that after endorsing someone right away? That they're working together, because Karen is deathly afraid of going head-to-head with Spencer Pratt, who is marketing like crazy on social media with these AI ads. And Karen Bass has been saying these are violence. They're leaning towards violence. He's not doing it. It's this guy, Charlie Curran. I think he's retweeted it a few times. But Karen does not want to run against this guy, because he knows how to talk to people. He knows what people are feeling. He says, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a MAGA. I'm not anything other than a guy that represents angry Angelenos. And what do you make of Spencer Pratt? And do you think he has a chance?
He's going to get Al-Cheki'd. Do you remember Al-Cheki?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you who Al-Cheki was. He was the CEO of Northwest Airlines, lived in Beverly Hills or Brentwood, very nice area of Los Angeles. And he ran for the 1998 Democratic primary, and he spent millions of dollars 28 years ago. And he was neck and neck with Gray Davis. And Al-Cheki, who I know personally, was a brilliant guy and would have been a great leader for California, and had a whole set of reforms, business reforms that could have worked for California. But he got beat by the machinery around the Democratic Party, and he got beat by the establishment machinery. And so those two women had that machinery behind them. And this is the same thing for the Republican gubernatorial candidate, Steve Hilton. That one-party system in California that has manifested itself over the last 40 years, with guys like Pete Uberoff and Pete Wilson and et cetera, distant memories in California, they're going to eat him alive at the end. And it'll be a combination of turnout. There are not enough moderates, radical centrists like Billy Bush, that actually get their butts out of the seat and go to the voting booth. And this is the big irony, Billy. If we could vote over the blockchain on these, then hey, no problem. Right. He would probably win. But we don't do it that way. We have this whole archaic system. And so I think he's going to get smisted. I think Mayor Bass is going to win. And do I want her
I don't
to win?
think so.
No, because I think she's been a disaster.
This is crazy.
Look at what's going on with the...
There's a red wave going on in California in the governor's race. There's the early voting.
It's like Hungary.
It
can't be a red wave, Billy. It can't be a red wave. It's got to be a red
surge.
Tsunami.
It's not a wave. It's a surge, and it's coming. All the early voting shows a massive increase.
Hear me out.
Huh?
It's got to be a tsunami, Billy.
I understand it has to be a tsunami. I understand, but I'm saying once Spencer Pratt gets into hand-to-hand combat, if he gets rid of Nithya Raman on June 2nd and it becomes Spencer versus Bass, she doesn't know how to handle him. I said this. Jeb Bush is a smart man, my cousin. He had no idea how to handle Donald Trump. He's like, this is not for real. I think, this guy has behind him a relentless fight. He's got his home in ashes on the ground. I think Karen Bass has, she has failed in immeasurable ways. And I think this guy, I think he can do it. And he's coming in here Wednesday.
Listen, I want you to be right. Hopefully you'll invite me on and you'll prove me wrong, and you can have you can dunk me or something like that. And I want to be wrong, but I am cynical. And I'm cynical because I understand how the machinery works.
I know.
And how they chew these people up at the last minute. And again, Al Checky, who's probably in his mid-70s now, wonderful leader, wonderful entrepreneur, great vision for California. The direction that California would have gone in would have been immeasurably better over the last quarter of a century, but they ate him up.
Well, you know what? Spencer's coming in here Wednesday. We're going to tape, and we will roll him back on Thursday morning. Thursday, it'll be posted on Hot Mics with Billy Bush, Spencer Pratt in the house. Mooch, I know you got to run.
Just do me a favor. If he loses, tell him to move to New York and run against Mondami. I've got to try to help him here.
Right now he's running against Ramdani. That's Nithya Raman. We call her Ramdani. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Good to be on with you,
Love
brother.
your T-shirt. Old school, man. Battleship.
This is old school, man.
Yeah.
Battleship. These are the... This is an honorarium of all those Iranian battleships that we supposedly sunk. Okay, we're just having a little cheekiness today, Billy.
When I'm president, I'm gonna absolutely crown the USS Mooch, and we're sending it into Hormuz, and it's gonna be a great thing.
You can't wait. I'll bring the bottle. I'll bring the bottle of Cristal. Okay, to smash on the ship. All right, God bless you, brother.
I'll see you, buddy. Thanks so much.